And so we settle in. You can feel your body beginning to grow heavy in the most pleasant way. In our time together tonight, there is nothing to examine, nothing to understand, only the gentle rhythm of a story. Tonight, we drift into a world lit by candle and fire. A world of stone walls and whispered arrangements. A world where a tiny, new heartbeat was not always a miracle, but sometimes a commodity. The story of a life measured not in years, but in its value on the marriage market. Before we drift too far, if you feel a connection to this place of rest, you're welcome to leave a quiet like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as leaving a soft footprint in the sand. Before you continue your journey inward, your peaceful presence here is what matters most. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave a comment with your city and the time on the clock. A quiet hello to all the other souls listening in the night. All right, let the shadows in your room grow long and soft. Maybe you can hear the faint sound of your own breathing. And together, let's allow the story to begin. You arrive into a world of cold stone and flickering light. The air is thick with the scent of damp straw, boiled linen, and something metallic that you will one day recognize as anxious sweat. You are not greeted with gasps of joyous wonder, but with a tense, held breath silence. The first sounds you hear are not coos of affection, but the strained whisper of a midwife and the shuffling feet of ladies in waiting. You are a product of a successful, and no doubt grueling, dynastic labor. A tired, heavily breathing woman on a large bed. Your mother is a background detail. The focus of the room, the center of its gravity, is your father, a man whose shadow swallows half the chamber. Here's him looking at you, a newborn, wrinkled and dread. He's looking at what you represent. The midwife, a woman with hands as rough as burlap, finally makes the pronouncement after a brief, functional inspection. A girl, healthy. There is a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere. Not disappointment. That would be an insult to God's will and your mother's effort. It's more like the quiet click of a complex machine shifting gears. Some would have been the air. A direct continuation of the line. A straightforward and celebrated path. But you are something different. You are a tool of diplomacy, a vessel for alliance. You are not a future ruler, but a future bridge to another ruler's lands. Your father's mind is already miles away, tracing the borders of his domain and the domains of his rivals and allies. He sees not a daughter to raise, but a puzzle piece to be placed. Are his northern neighbors getting restless? A marriage pact with them could quiet things down. Does he need a safer trade route to the sea? Perhaps a union with that southern duke's son would secure it. Your entire existence, from this very first breath, is being overlaid onto a map. You are a signature on a treaty that hasn't been written yet. You are swaddled, bound tightly in strips of clean linen until you are a tiny, rigid parcel. They say it is to ensure your limbs grow straight and strong, to contain your infant flailing. But it feels like a premonition, the first of many bindings that will define your life. You are made meet, manageable, and inert, an object to be presented. And what of your mother? Does she look at you with a profound, instinctive love? Historians still argue about the nature of parental affection in an age where death was a constant visitor in the nursery, when a third of all children might not see their 5th birthday. Some believe that parents, even mothers, learn it to keep a certain emotional distance, a way to shield their hearts from the almost inevitable pain of loss. She knows that you are not truly hers to keep. You are on loan to her, a precious asset belonging to the house, to the bloodline, to the dynasty. Her job was to produce you. Now, her job is to keep you alive long enough to be useful. There is a strange and chilling piece of trivia from this time. The almost immediate calculation of a girl's dowry. While you are still learning to focus your eyes, men in another room are already taking stock of lands, counting head of cattle, underestimating chests of silver that will one day be packaged up with you. You are the most valuable commodity your family possesses, and they are already drafting the terms of your eventual sale. Your future is a business transaction, and the negotiations have already begun. You sleep in your crib, a tiny, warm weight in the vast coldness of the castle, utterly unaware that you are already the subject of ledgers and letters, a name whispered in the strategic planning of powerful men. Your worth has been determined before you even have a personality. Your first night in this world is not about being welcomed into a family, but about being entered onto the balance sheet. The world slowly resolves itself from a blur of light and shadow into a series of distinct, repeating moments. Your universe is a chamber, perhaps a suite of rooms if your family is particularly wealthy, known as the nursery. It's a space defined by the thick stone walls that keep the cold out, and the richer, heavier tapestries that keep the warmth in. A single, high window, more of a slit in the stone than a true window, allows a slice of pale, indifferent sky to be your clock. You learn to tell the time of day by the way this bar of light crawls across the opposite wall. Your mother is a visitor here, a perfumed, rustling presence who appears for brief, formal inspections. She might touch your hair, her fingers cool and smooth, and ask your nursemaid if you are eating well, if your cough has subsided. Her love is a distant, administrative thing. The true center of your small world is your nurse, a woman whose body is soft and warm, whose hands are always busy, and whose lap is the only real home you know. It is her lullabies, simple folk songs about mischievous sprites and brave, lost nights, that shape your earliest dreams. You now have toys. They are simple, solid things. A carved wooden horse with a tail made of real horsehair, a set of smooth, polished stones for stacking, and your most prized possession, a doll. She is made of bundled rags with a face painted in soot and berry juice. In your mind, she is a great lady. You dress her in scraps of silk begged from the sewing maids. You stage elaborate feasts for her with fallen leaves and pebbles for plates. You are mimicking the world around you, rehearsing a life you don't yet understand you are destined for. On the other side of the castle, in a sunnier room with a much larger window, another kind of play is unfolding. Here, the dolls are maps, and the game pieces are men with armies. Your father sits at a heavy oak table with several other men. They don't smell of milk and lavender like your nurse. They smell of leather, wine, and the faint, sharp scent of ink. Envoys from a neighboring territory have come to talk of peace and strengthening ties. These are soft words for hard bargains. As you carefully arrange a tiny acorn cup for your doll's feast, your name is spoken in that other room. It falls onto the heavy table with no more weight than a dried leaf. It is mentioned in the same breath as a disputed forest, a series of trade tariffs, and the number of armed men to be pledged in case of a border skirmish. The men push parchments back and forth. They argue. They concede. They toast their agreements. You, the human being, are entirely absent from their minds. They are discussing the daughter, a strategic asset, a guarantee. The blood that runs in your veins is a seal on a contract. Historians still debate whether the very idea of a protected childhood even existed for the nobility of this era. Some argue that children were simply viewed as miniature adults, expected to shed their childish ways and assume their duties as quickly as their bodies would allow. Others point to evidence of toys, games, and lullabies as proof that affection and a sense of innocence were still valued. But for you, it's a strange mix. You are given a space to play, but the purpose of that play is to prepare you. Your innocence is being cultivated for a very specific, adult purpose. A truly strange fact of the time is that dolls like yours, if you were of a very high rank, could serve a dual purpose. Sometimes, exquisitely crafted dolls dressed in the latest fashions were sent from one court to another. They weren't just toys. They were medieval fashion magazines on a small, unnerving scale, showcasing a court's wealth and style. A tiny, silent ambassador making a statement long before you ever could. So you sit on the floor, humming a tune from your nurse, lost in your small, manageable world. You decide your doll will marry the wooden horse, a powerful and handsome match. You are the sole architect of this miniature destiny. You have complete control. You are entirely unaware that just a few hundred feet away, a group of powerful men are doing the exact same thing with your own future, and unlike your doll, you will have no say in the matter at all. The ink is drying on a letter of proposal. The first move in the great game has been made, using you as the opening pawn. The rhythm of your days has a gentle, predictable beat. Wait, play, int. A brief, tedious lesson in needlepoint where your stitches are always too loose. I walk in the walled garden if the sun is out. A story from your nurse if it is not. The world is small, safe, and entirely monotonous. But one morning, the beat changes. It starts not with a gentle tap, but with a series of frantic, percussive sounds from the courtyard below your window. The clatter of many iron short hoods on stone. The boom of male voices shouting orders. The jangle of harnesses. A nervous energy floods the castle, seeping under doors and through cracks in the stone. It's a feeling you can taste in the air. A hum of importance that has nothing to do with your daily routine. Your nurse is flustered, her movements quick and jerky. Maids scurry through the corridors with armfuls of fresh linen and jugs of wine. Something is happening. Someone has arrived. You are unceremoniously plucked from your play. Your face is scrubbed with a rough, damp cloth until your cheeks burn. Your simple linen shift is stripped off, and you are wrestled into a dress you have never worn before. It is made of a heavy, dark velvet that smells of the cedar chest it has been stored in. The sleeves are tight. The collar scratches your neck, and the sheer weight of it makes you feel like you are being pressed into the ground. It is an absurd costume for a small child. You feel less like a person and more like an object being prepared for display. Then, you are led by the hand, not to the familiar nursery, but towards the great hall, the place of feasts and important pronouncements. The huge wooden doors swing open, and the scene inside is overwhelming. The room is crowded with men from your father's court, and a handful of strangers whose faces are weathered from travel and whose clothes are cut in a slightly different style. They wear heavier furs. Their boots are caked with the mud of a foreign land. Your father stands near the great stone hearth, and when he sees you, he beckons you forward. His hand on your shoulder is not gentle. It is firm, a grip of ownership. You are positioned in front of him, facing the strangers. They look down at you from a great height, their bearded faces unsmiling. A conversation happens far above your head. Words, deep and resonant, echo in the rafters. You catch a few of them, like stones skipping across the surface of a pond, their meaning sinking before you can grasp it. Words like alliance, dowry, treaty, and a boy's name, a name that is completely foreign to you. Historians to this day puzzle over what a child like you would have understood in a moment like this. Did you comprehend the finality of the words being spoken? Or was it just a confusing blur of adult ceremony? The consensus is that you wouldn't have understood the legal specifics, but you would have felt the emotional gravity. You can feel it now. The unblinking stares, the utter seriousness on your father's face, the way the entire room seems to be holding its breath, waiting, you know, with the unerring instinct of a child, that this moment is about you. One of the strangers, a man with grey in his beard and a heavy gold chain around his neck, steps forward. He kneels, a crackle of leather and wool, bringing his face level with yours. He offers you a small, velvet-lined box. Inside is a ring. It's a gimmel ring, a fashionatedly intricate piece of social technology, forged of 2 or 3 interlocking bands that, when joined, create a single, complete ring. It's a puzzle and a promise in one. The envoy might hold on to one band, your father another, a physical representation of the betrothal pact, only to be fully joined on your wedding day. It is, in essence, a piece of a legally binding contract made beautiful. He doesn't try to put it on your finger. He knows it would slide right off. He simply shows it to you, then hands the box to your father. The deal, which was once just words on a parchment, is now sealed with this cold, heavy piece of gold. Then comes the final, chilling gesture. Your father takes your hand, small and slightly sticky. and places it in the large, calloused palm of the lead envoy, a symbolic handoff, a transfer of trust and of property. And just like that, it's over. The envoys bow. You are led away. The scratchy velvet dress already a prison. Back in your quiet room. The distant sounds of men celebrating with your father's best wine barely register. Your world has been irrevocably altered. A door has been locked behind you that you never even knew existed. You are no longer just your father's daughter. You are now, officially, a future wife, a name on a treaty, a promise to be kept. The castle settles back into its familiar rhythm, but a new, quiet tension underlies it. The important men are gone, but their purpose lingers, a scent in the air that only you seem to notice. Weeks, maybe months, pass. The memory of the velvet dress and the bearded strangers begins to feel like a strange, half-remembered dream. Then, one day, the formal preparations begin again. This time, there is no frantic rush. It is a slow, deliberate, and solemn affair. You are being prepared for a ceremony. This time, you are taken to the castle's chapel. It's a space you know from Sunday services, but it feels different today. Colder, somehow. The air is heavy with the scent of old stone, damp wool, and the faint, sweet smell of melting beeswax from the dozens of candles that flicker on the altar, their small flames dancing like captured stars in the gloom. The usual congregation is absent. They're only your parents, a few high-ranking members of your father's court, a stern-faced priest, and, standing near the altar, the boy. He looks to be a few years older than you, maybe 7 or 8. He is as stiff and uncomfortable in his formal tunic as you are in your heavy gown. He is a complete stranger. You have never seen him before. This, you realize with a jolt of dawning comprehension, is him, the name from the Great Hall, your future. He catches your eye for a moment, a flicker of mutual, childish terror, before his father places a heavy hand on his shoulder, forcing him to look forward. The priest begins to speak in a low, droning Latin that washes over you without meaning. Your father gently nudges you forward, and you walk the few steps to stand beside the boy. You are so small that your head barely reaches his shoulder. An attendant quietly slides a small wooden stool behind you, and you are lifted onto it. Now you are at the right height. Now the fast can look a little more convincing. You are prompted to speak. For weeks, a lady-in-waiting has been drilling you, making you repeat a string of formal-sounding phrases until you could recite them in your sleep. You open your mouth and the sounds come out, hollow and strange in the cavernous quiet, repeating words whose weight you cannot possibly comprehend. These are the verba di futuro, the words of the future. It is a formal declaration of intent to marry at a later date. This is not a play, you are told. This is a binding contract in the eyes of God and the law. A promise that, if broken, could lead to excommunication or even war. Historians today argue fiercely about the validity of such vows. Under church law, a true marriage required consent, but the medieval concept of consent was a slippery thing. Could a 7-year-old truly consent? The church's answer was a pragmatic no, but their parents can consent for them and the children will ratify it later. This betrothal is a legal cage built of promises, and you are being placed gently inside it. Here's a detail that makes the whole affair even more surreal. Sometimes, the boy standing beside you wasn't even the real groom. If your intended was the heir to a truly great house, or lived a continent away, he would be represented by a proxy, a cousin, or the son of a trusted nobleman, would stand in for him, speaking the vows on his behalf. This boy next to you might just be a living symbol, a placeholder for the real stranger you are now bound to. Your life is being tied not even to a person you've met, but to an idea of a person, a name on a page. The boy recites his own memorized lines, his voice cracking slightly on a high note. Then comes the exchange of a token. He is given a ring, the same one you saw in the box, perhaps, and he clumsily tries to place it on your finger. It's far too big, of course. It slides uneasily and would fall right off if you lowered your hand. You are instructed to keep your hand raised, a tiny, reluctant statue. The priest makes the sign of the cross over your joined hands, his Latin words falling like a final layer of dust, settling the matter for good. You step down from the stool, the ceremony complete. You have performed your function. You look at the strange boy. Your betrothed, your future husband. He is just a child, his face pale in the candlelight. There is no spark of connection, no hint of a shared future. There is only a shared bewilderment. You are two children, playing the lead roles in a solemn, incomprehensible play written by adults. You are led out of the chapel, the heavy ring now secured by your mother. Nothing feels different. Yet everything has changed. You have a new title now, an identity that will precede you for the rest of your childhood. You are betrothed. The ceremony in the chapel becomes the new marker of your life. There was the time before, and the time after. The after is a strange, quiet limbo. You are still in your father's castle, sleeping in the same bed, but you are no longer entirely his. You are a package that has been sealed and addressed, now simply waiting for collection. Your lessons continue. Your routines are the same, but a sense of borrowed time hangs over everything. You are a guest in your own childhood home. The day it happens arrives with the same suddenness as the envoy's first visit. There is no warning, no gentle preparation. There is only the sight of your nurse, her eyes red-rimmed, folding your small clothes and placing them carefully into a large, leather-bound chest. Another, much grander chest is being filled with bolts of fabric, silver-backed brushes, and other items you've never seen before. These, you understand, are not yours. They are part of the dairy, the goods that will travel with you. You are being sent away from the only home you have ever known, away from the only faces you recognize. This isn't a visit. This is a relocation. Your new family. It is explained in cool, practical terms, wishes to oversee the remainder of your education themselves. They want to shape you in their image, to ensure you are a suitable match for their son and a proper mistress for their castle. This was not considered cruel. It was eminently practical. It was a way to guarantee the investment, to smooth the transition, and to ensure you didn't develop any inconvenient loyalties to your birth family over your new one. The moment of departure is a stark, cold affair in the castle bailey. The air is crisp. Your breath is small, white cloud. A small train of guards and servants, sent from your future home, waits with impatient horses. You are dressed in a heavy traveling cloak, the wool so thick and stiff it feels like a wooden shell. Your father places a hand on your head. It is not a caress, but a formal blessing. God go with you. Be a credit to your name, he says, his voice devoid of any warmth. Your mother kisses your forehead, her lips as cool and dry as paper. Her parting words are an instruction. Obey your mother-in-law in all things. Historians still debate the emotional impact of these separations. Some argue that in a world where noble children were raised by staff, the bond with parents was not as we know it, and such moves were accepted with a kind of conditioned stoicism. Others insist that the trauma was profound, a fundamental severing of a child's roots. But as you stand there, the only real, sharp pain you feel is when you say goodbye to your nurse. She hugs you tightly, a forbidden gesture in this formal setting, and whispers a line from one of her old lullabies into your ear. It is the only true warmth you will feel all day. Her tears are the only ones shed for you. You are lifted onto a horse, or perhaps into a lumbering, springless carriage, and then you are moving. The castle gates groan shut behind you. A final, definitive sound. The journey is a miserable, monotonous blur. You watch the landscape that you know, the familiar hills, the crooked spine of a distant forest, recede and then vanish, replaced by unfamiliar fields and strange, empty roads. You are a silent, tiny passenger at the heart of a traveling caravan. The men who guard you are polite but distant. They are transporting a valuable object, and they treat you with the same detached care they might give to a crate of rare porcelain. One of the more peculiar details of such a journey was the constant, no-grade fear, not just of the unknown destination, but of the journey itself. The roads were not safe. Banditry was common. A high-born child, traveling with a visible dowry, was a tempting target. Your guards are not just an escort. They are a necessary deterrent. It's a sobering thought. Your life is valuable enough to be traded, but also valuable enough to be stolen. Days blur into a miserable sequence of jolting travel and nights spent in cold, unfamiliar inns or the drafty halls of lesser lords obliged to host your party. You eat stale bread and salted meat, and you sleep huddled under furs that smell of strange horses and other people. You are lonely in a way you have never been before, a profound and hollow ache. You have been uprooted, and you have no idea what soil you are being transplanted into, after what feels like an eternity. The leader of your escort points to a dark shape on the horizon, a smudge of stone and shadow that slowly grows into the imposing silhouette of a castle. Your new home. It does not look welcoming. It looks like a fortress, a cage. You have been successfully delivered. The portcullis groans as it rises, a sound like a great beast waking from a long slumber. It reveals not a welcoming home, but a busy, self-contained world of stone and activity. The inner courtyard is a chaotic ballet of stable boys, barking dogs, and men-at-arms whose faces are hard and unfamiliar. You are lifted down from your horse, your legs stiff and numb, and for a moment you are just a small, lost child in a sea of indifferent strangers. Then, the path clears, the noise seems to hush, the activity stills. A figure is descending the main stone steps from the keep. She is tall, framed by the dark, arched doorway behind her. She wears no crown, but she is unquestionably the queen of this small, stone kingdom. This is your future mother-in-law. Her face is not unkind, but is entirely devoid of softness. It is a face carved by duty and authority, with lines around the eyes that speak of long vigils and the fine vertical crease between her brows that suggests a permanent state of critical assessment. She is not here to welcome a daughter. She is here to receive a delivery. You are gently pushed forward to stand before her. She does not kneel to greet you. She waits for you to look up at her. Her eyes, the color of a winter sky, move over you in a single, swift appraisal. She takes in your travel-stained cloak, your small, pale face, your posture. It is the look of a master craftsman inspecting a piece of valuable, unfinished material. You are smaller than I expected, she says, her voice as crisp and cool as the air. We will need to see you are well fed. It is not an expression of concern. It is a statement of practical necessity. A healthy broodmare must be well fed. You are now under her roof, and more importantly, under her legal authority. In the complex legal tapestry of the age, the invisible reins of guardianship have been formally passed from your father's hand to her family's. You are her ward, her responsibility, her project. She turns and sweeps back into the keep, and you are simply expected to follow in her wake. A tiny ship being pulled into the harbor of a great, imposing war vessel. The ladies in waiting who are assigned to you are extensions of her. Their smiles are polite, but their eyes are watchful. They show you to your new chambers, a room far grander than your nursery at home, with a huge, curtained bed and a window that looks out over the battlements, but it feels like a beautifully appointed cage. Your own, familiar things, the few you were allowed to bring, look small and pathetic in this vast, impersonal space. And so begins your life in the shadow. Your mother-in-law's presence is constant, even when she is not in the room. You feel her gaze in the way the sewing mistress corrects your posture, in the way the priest quizzes you on your catechism, in the portions of food you are served at dinner. Every aspect of your life is now curated, controlled, and monitored. You are being observed not for who you are, but for what you will become. She is looking for flaws in the material, weaknesses that must be corrected, rough edges that must be smoothed away before you are joined with her precious son. Historians still debate whether these relationships were prisons of surveillance or a form of rigorous, loveless apprenticeship. Was this woman your jailer, or was she the only person preparing you for the brutal realities of the life you were born to lead? The truth, as always, is probably a complex and uncomfortable mix of both. She is not your enemy, but she is certainly not your friend. She is your manager. A curious detail of this arrangement is the delicate dance of household politics. The servants and staff, who may have served this family for generations, now watch you with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. You are the outsider, the foreign element. Your favor with the mistress of the house determines your status. Then right now, you have none. You must earn your place, not with charm or affection, but with obedience and by proving you are a worthy addition to their bloodline. You are the lowest ranking member of the family, and every stable hand and kitchen maid knows it. You rarely see the boy, your betrothal. He is off with his tutors, learning the arts of war and governance, things a man needs to know. Your education, you will soon find, is to be of a very different sort. For now, your primary duty is simply to exist, to grow, to ripen. You are a sapling being carefully tended in a walled garden, pruned and watered and watched, all in preparation for the day you are expected to bear fruit for someone else's family tree. The days of quiet observation are over. Your formal education begins, and it starts not in a room with books and ink, but in the noisy, fragrant, functional heart of the castle. Your mother-in-law summons you one morning before the sun has fully risen. She doesn't hand you a primer. She hands you a heavy ring of iron from which a dozen keys of all shapes and sizes hang. The weight of it surprises you. This, she explains, is the chatelaine. These keys open every storeroom, every pantry, every chest of value in this castle. One day, she says, her voice flattened matter-of-fact, these will be yours. You will learn what each one protects. This is the foundation of your curriculum. You are not being taught to read poetry. You are being taught to read inventories. Your mornings are spent in the cold, cavernous storerooms, learning the difference between various grades of flour, the proper way to store salted fish to prevent rot, and how to calculate how many barrels of ale will be needed for the upcoming feast of St. John. You learn to count. Yes, but not for the sake of mathematics. You count bolts of linen, sacks of grain, and jars of honey. Your world becomes a vast, complex equation of logistics. You are learning to be the quartermaster of a small army. In the afternoons, you are taught the art of the still room. Here, you learn about herbs, not for their beauty, but for their utility. You learn that lavender helps with sleep, that comfrey can be made into a poultice for bruises, that rosemary aids the memory. Your teacher is an old woman whose knuckles are permanently stained green. She teaches you the doctrine of signatures, a peculiar and widely held belief that God had marked plants to reveal their purpose. A plant with a heart-shaped leaf must be good for the heart. A flower shaped like an eye must be for ailments. It is a strange, mystical science, a mix of genuine herbal wisdom and pure, unadulterated folklore. This is your medicine, your pharmacology. And then there is the needle. Hours upon hours are spent with the ladies in waiting in the solar, the sunniest room in the keep. With needles in your hand, you are not creating art for its own sake. You are mending. You are embroidering. You are learning to maintain the single most expensive asset the family owns besides their land and their horses. Their textiles. A noble lady's gown, heavy with thread of gold and seed pearls, could be wear small farm. Your skill with the needle is a measure of your ability to protect and display the family as wealth. Your fingers, small and often clumsy, are perpetually pricked and sore. What you are not taught is telling. There are no lessons in history, philosophy, or literature. In fact, literacy itself is a complicated issue. Historians still argue about how widespread reading ability was among women of your station. Many noble women, It's true. We're taught to read their book of hours, a personal collection of prayers. But reading for devotion was one thing. Reading for knowledge or, heaven forbid, for pleasure, was quite another. Writing was an even rarer skill for women, often seen as unnecessary, even dangerous. An educated mind is a questioning mind, and your role is not to question. Your role is to manage. So your mind is filled not with epic poems, but with the subtle signs of spoilage on a side of bacon. Your hands learn not to form letters, but to test the quality of wool by touch. Every lesson, every skill you acquire, is aimed at a single, practical goal: to make you a competent administrator of your future husband's property and a serene, pleasing, and utterly undemanding presence at his side. You are being meticulously crafted into the perfect chatelaine, a woman whose domain is the household, whose power is in her keys, and whose thoughts are expected to never stray beyond the castle walls. You are not being educated. You are being domesticated. For many months, the boy you are betrothed to has been a ghost, a name mentioned in prayers, a presence you are aware of somewhere on the other side of the castle walls, but not a person you interact with. He is a concept, not a reality. Then, one afternoon, the routine of your lessons is broken. A lady-in-waiting informs you that the mistress of the house requests your presence in the walled garden. And, she adds with a significant look, you are to bring your cloak. The boy will be there. Your heart does a strange, fluttering little dance in your chest. It's not excitement, it's a cold, nervous dread. You have been so focused on learning your duties, on pleasing your mother-in-law, that you have almost forgotten about the ultimate purpose of all this training. Him. The garden is a small, controlled square of green, a patch of tamed nature within the fortress. Your mother-in-law is seated on a stone bench, her needlework in her lap, though her needle is still. She is not here to sew, she is here to walk. The boy is standing a few feet away, poking at a loose stone with the toe of his boot. He has grown since you saw him in the chapel. He is taller, his shoulders are broader, and his voice, when he offers a mumbled greeting, is a half-broken thing, got somewhere between a boy's pipe and a man's rumble. Walk together. Your mother-in-law instructs, her voice leaving no room for argument. It is a command, not a suggestion. And so you do. You walk, side by side, down the gravel path that circles the small garden. The crunching of your shoes is the only sound. You are two strangers forced on a promenade, with a judge observing your every move. What are you supposed to say? The things you know are the price of beeswax and the signs of a good harvest. The things he knows are sword handling and the lineage of kings. Your worlds are designed to intersect at only one point: marriage. He asks you if your journey was difficult. You say it was. He asks if you like the castle. You say you do. The conversation dies, starved of oxygen. The silence that follows is immense. A physical presence that presses in on you both. He is less a future husband and more a rare, bad-tempered animal you're both being forced to observe in a cage. He doesn't look at you. He looks at the tops of the walls, at the sky, at anything but the small girl walking stiffly beside him. Historians refer to these staged interactions as a necessary part of the process, a way to foster a sense of amity before the wedding. The goal wasn't for you to fall in love, a dangerously modern concept. The goal was simply to remove the terrifying element of the complete stranger from the wedding bed. But did it work? Or did these awkward, supervised meetings only heighten the sense of artificial? That's a question scholars still ponder. To fill the suffocating silence, a lady-in-waiting is dispatched to fetch again. A small, inlaid board and a set of carved ivory pieces are brought out. Chess. It's a perfect solution, a way for you to interact without having to speak. Chess was seen as a suitably noble pastime, a game of strategy that was considered excellent training for a male mind and an acceptable, quiet diversion for a female one. The bizarrely popular variation of the game at the time, which may or may not have been known at your court, was called career chess. played on a larger 12x8 board with extra pieces like a courier and a jester. It made the already complex game even more of a silent, strategic battle. You sit opposite each other on the cold stone bench. The board between you. His mother-in-law watches. The game begins. Click. His pawn advances. Click. You counter with your own. You play in near total silence. The small, sharp sounds of the ivory pieces on the wood the only conversation between you. You can feel his frustration when you take one of his pieces. A small, sharp exhalation of breath. You feel a tiny, unfamiliar spark of triumph. In this one, small, circumscribed world, you are not a ward or a bride in waiting. You are a competitor. But even this small victory is shadowed by the reality of your situation. He may lose this game of chess, but in the larger game of your lives, he holds all the powerful pieces. He is the king, and you are, at best, a queen whose movements are powerful but always in service to him. He is the heir. He will inherit the castle, the lands, the titles. You will only ever be the consort, the vessel through which his legacy continues. He may be an awkward, sullen boy right now, but he is a boy who holds your entire existence in his hands. This small, silent battle over a checkered board is the only kind of equal footing you will ever be allowed to have. The game ends. The bell tolls for evening prayers. Your time is up. You are escorted away, leaving him standing by the board. You haven't gotten to know each other at all, but you have learned something. You have taken the measure of his pride, and he has taken the measure of your intelligence. The strange, silent dance has begun. The castle, you begin to realize, is not just a home, it is a court, a complex ecosystem of power, ambition, and personality, all circling around the central sun of your future father-in-law. And in this ecosystem, you are a new, and very vulnerable, species of creature. You are learning that there are two sets of rules here. The formal ones taught by your mother-in-law, and the informal ones, which you must decipher from whispers, glances, and the things left pointedly unsaid. This is the art of invisibility. Your lessons in this silent curriculum begin at the dinner table. You sit below the salt, of course, a marker of your junior status. You are instructed to eat with quiet efficiency, to take small bites, to never speak unless spoken to. But your most important task is to listen. You listen to the way your father-in-law praises one night's performance in the training yard and subtly criticizes another's. You notice which of your mother-in-law's ladies-in-waiting is trusted to pour her wine, and which is consistently ignored. These are not random events. They are data points. They are the rising and falling of individual stocks in the closed market of the court. You learn that information is a currency more valuable than gold. The sewing circle, once a place of tedious duty, becomes your primary intelligence-gathering hub. The women here, their heads bent over their work, their hands busy, speaking a low, continuous murmur. They trade gossip like merchants trade spices. You learn that the stable master is skimming money from the grain budget, that a certain lady-in-waiting is receiving secret letters, that your father-in-law is in a foul temper because a letter from the king brought bad news. Most of this is background noise, irrelevant to you, but, occasionally, a piece of information makes your ears prick up. A mention of your own family, a complaint about the cost of your upkeep, a speculation about when your wedding might finally happen. This is a dangerous game. You are a child, and children are supposed to be deaf and dumb to the world of adult intrigue. Your invisibility is your greatest asset. You sit in a window seat with your mending, your small frame and quiet demeanor making you easy to overlook. Adults speak more freely around you, assuming you are too young or too simple to understand the nuances of their conversation. You are a small, quiet sponge, absorbing everything, learning to filter the important from the trivial. One of the most peculiar and perilous aspects of court survival was the concept of favor. Your mother-in-law's favor is your shield, as long as she is pleased with your progress. Your improving needlework, Your quick memorization of the household accounts. You are safe. But if that favor were to slip, if you were to become disobedient, sullen, or in any way problematic, that shield would vanish, and without it, you would be exposed to the casual cruelties and minor power plays of everyone else in the hierarchy. A forgotten meal, a misplaced winter cloak, a sharp word from a servant who knows they can get away with it. Your survival depends on keeping your one powerful protector content. Historians often struggle to reconstruct the emotional landscape of these courts. Were they hotbeds of constant paranoia? Or were these intrigues just a part of the daily fabric of life, no more remarkable than the changing of the seasons? The answer likely varies from court to court. But the universal truth is that for a child transplanted into this environment, it must have been a crash course in social dynamics. You learn to read the subtle shifts in a person's tone, to notice the flicker of annoyance in your mother-in-law's eyes before it becomes a full-blown reprimand. You are learning the art of the neutral expression, the non-committal answer. When a gossiping lady asks what you think of the visiting lord's flamboyant dress, you learn to say, "I am not skilled in judging such things. You are a blank slate." As still pond, you reflect what is shown to you and reveal nothing of what lies beneath. This is not just a social grace. It is a survival mechanism. In a world of shifting allegiances and hidden resentments, the safest position is to have no stated opinion at all. Your childhood is not being spent in carefree play, but in a state of constant, low-level vigilance. You are becoming a master of observation, a silent student of human nature in its most raw and political form. You are learning that the most important lessons are not the ones taught with a key or a needle, but the ones you overhear in a shadowed corridor. And the most crucial rule of all is that the less you are noticed, the more you will see. The years, which once seemed to stretch out like an endless, unchanging road, are beginning to feel shorter, more condensed. The turning of the seasons is no longer just a shift from cold stone to warm sun and back again. You now measure time in the growth of your own body. Your gowns are let out at the seams, and then let out again. The world is no longer a place you look up at. Your eye level is steadily rising, bringing you closer to the gazes of the adults around you. Your body, which had been a simple, functional thing for so long, is becoming a stranger to you, changing in subtle, then undeniable ways, and you are not the only one who notices. The nature of the observation you are under begins to shift. Before, your mother-in-law and her ladies watched your hands to see if your stitches were even. Now, they watch your waist to see if it is narrowing, your hips to see if they are widening. Their gazes are discreet. Of course, a series of quick, critical glances when they think you are not looking, but you feel them. It's a new kind of scrutiny, one that feels far more invasive than a critique of your embroidery. It is the appraisal of a farmer checking on the progress of a prize heifer. One day, you are summoned not to the still room or the solar, but to the chapel, outside of the usual hours of prayer. The priest is there, and so is your mother-in-law. It is not a scolding, nor is it a lesson in scripture. It is an explanation of law. God's law, they call it, but it sounds more like the terms of a contract. The priest speaks to you in a calm, measured tone about the sacrament of marriage, and he tells you of the ages. The annus nobilis, the marriageable year. For a girl, he explains, the age at which a betrothal can be formally converted into a true marriage is 12. For a boy, it is 14. You hear the number 12 and it hangs in the cold, still air of the chapel. It is a shockingly small number. It is an age you are fast approaching. The priest explains that this is not an arbitrary number. It is the age at which the church, in its wisdom, deems a girl capable of consenting to the union and, more importantly, capable of bearing a child. The medieval understanding of consent is a world away from ours. It had little to do with emotional maturity, intellectual understanding, or personal desire. It was about two things: the ability to physically utter the words of the vow, and the physical capacity to fulfill the biological purpose of the marriage procreation. Your readiness is not a matter of the heart or the mind. It is a matter of the body. Historians today are locked in a deep debate about this very rule. Was the age of 12 a strict, unbreakable law, or was it merely a strong suggestion? The evidence is maddeningly contradictory. For every parish record showing a marriage taking place at a proper age, there is a letter from a powerful noble to the Pope in Rome, requesting a special dispensation. A papal dispensation was the ultimate loophole. A way for the very wealthy and the very powerful to bypass the rules for the sake of a politically crucial alliance, if the bride was 10, or even 8. But the marriage would secure a kingdom. The church could often be persuaded to look the other way. The law was the law, except when it was inconvenient for those who mattered. And beneath the grand legal questions, theologians and canon lawyers had their own, almost absurdly detailed arguments. What constituted true consent for a child? Did she have to understand the full spiritual weight of the sacrament of matrimony? Or was it enough for her to simply know that she was agreeing to live with this man as his wife? It's a strange, hair-splitting debate that reveals the deep discomfort at the heart of the practice. They were trying to build a solid legal and moral framework around something that feels, to us, fundamentally unsound. The binding of a child's future. You leave the chapel with the number 12 echoing in your thoughts. Your body no longer feels like your own. It feels like a timepiece, a biological clock owned and watched by your keepers. Its sticking hands moving you steadily closer to a predetermined fate. Every small, internal shift, every new and curve, is no longer a private experience of growing up. It is a public milestone. You are ripening, and your ripeness will be harvested. The vague, distant someday of your wedding is no longer a fantasy. It now has a deadline that is being written not in ink on a calendar, but in the silent, inexorable language of your own blood. The conversation in the chapel changes everything. Before, your life was a period of training. Now, it feels like a period of waiting, a vigil. The people around you are no longer just your teachers. They are your observers, your monitors, watching for a specific biological signal. You have become a watched pot, and the entire household is waiting for you to boil. The scrutiny is constant but indirect. It's in the way your mother-in-law asks if you've had your monthly courses, a conversation held in hushed, clinical tones with your chief lady-in-waiting. It's in the food you are served. Suddenly, your plate contains more red meat. Your wine is sometimes spiced with herbs that are said to strengthen the blood. You are being managed, cultivated, nutritionally optimized for a single purpose. Every meal is a prescription. You feel a profound sense of alienation from your own body. It is no longer a vessel for your consciousness, something that carries you through the world. It has become the central object of the entire enterprise, a project in which you are the least consulted member. Its changes are not private mysteries to be pondered, but public events to be reported up the chain of command. This feeling is only amplified by the profound lack of accurate information. No one sits you down to explain the mechanics of what is happening to you. Your knowledge is a patchwork quilt of servants' whispers, half-understood prayers about Eve's curse, and the agricultural metaphors of the farm. You understand breeding in the abstract, you've seen it with the dogs and the horses, but the connection to your own future is a terrifying, murky fog. A particularly strange and telling detail from this period is the medical advice given to young women. The prevailing theory of health was based on the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. A woman was considered naturally colder and wetter than a man, and the goal was to keep her humors in balance to ensure fertility. This meant a constant stream of advice, much of it contradictory. You might be told to avoid certain fruits, to wear woolen cloths against your skin, or to pray to specific saints who specialized in matters of fertility. Your health was not your own. It was a delicate state to be managed for the benefit of the bloodline. Historians still debate the psychological impact of this intense focus on a young girl's biological development. Did this constant surveillance create a state of perpetual anxiety, Or was it so deeply ingrained in the culture that it was accepted as a normal, if unpleasant, part of the noblewoman's life? It's impossible to know for sure, but it's hard to imagine it as anything other than a deeply isolating experience. A period of being constantly assessed for a function you barely understand. The boy you are to marry is also changing. You see him more often now, though your supervised walks are still just as stilted and awkward. His voice has settled into a permanent, low rumble. The fine, downy beard is starting to shade his jaw. He is becoming a man. While you are being watched for signs of fertility, he is being tested for signs of virility. He spends his days in the tilt yard, his body aching from the brutal practice of swordsmanship and horsemanship. His readiness is measured in strength and aggression. Yours is measured in blood. One day, it happens. The signal they have all been waiting for arrives. An intensely private event that you are immediately forced to make public. You confess it in a terrified whisper to your lady-in-waiting, who nods with a kind of grim satisfaction and immediately goes to inform the mistress of the house. There is no celebration, no congratulation. There is only a quiet, decisive shift in the atmosphere. Face which has been flipped. The pot is boiled. Your mother-in-law summons you. Her gaze is as unreadable as ever, but there is a new finality in it. You are a woman now, she states. It is not a welcome into a new stage of life. It is the closing of a door on the old one. The period of waiting is over. The period of preparation can now begin in earnest. Messengers are dispatched. Letters bearing the family seal are sent out. The wedding, which has been a distant abstraction for your entire life, is about to become a concrete reality. You are, at last, ready. The news of your readiness travels through the castle, not like a wildfire, but like a slow, rising tide. It lifts the energy of the household, turning the hum of daily life into a more focused, purposeful thrum. Seamstresses are suddenly tasked with new, far more elaborate projects. Messengers ride in and out of the gates with greater frequency. The topic of conversation at the high table shifts from harvests and border disputes to guest lists and the procurement of rare spices for a feast. The great machine of your wedding has begun to turn, and you are the quiet, still gear at its very center. Amidst all this activity, you are taken aside by the priest once more. This time, the conversation is more direct. He speaks to you about the words you will say at the altar, the verba di presenti, the words of the present, unlike the betrothal vows, which pointed to a future event. These words will make you a wife in the here and now. He stresses one word above all others, value. I will it, or I consent. He explains, in his dry, academic way, that this is the linchpin of the entire sacrament. Without your freely given consent, the marriage is not valid in the eyes of God. It is a lovely, enlightened idea on parchment that often had a rather brutal collision with reality. You are being presented with the illusion of a choice. The cage door is being held open for you, but you see that it only leads into a smaller, more permanent cage. You are being asked if you consent to a future that has been meticulously planned for you since your birth. A future that is tied to the political stability of two great houses. A future upon which fortunes have been spent and treaties have been signed. The question is not, do you want this? It is, will you perform the final necessary step of this transaction? To say no is not just a personal refusal, it is an act of political sabotage. It is an insult of the highest order to your future family, and a source of unimaginable shame for your own. What would happen? A convent, most likely. A quiet, spiritual prison to replace the gilded, domestic one that was planned for you. Your life, in any meaningful sense, would be over. Historians still argue about the true nature of this choice. They debate the minuscule degree of agency a girl like you might have had. Some argue that it was a complete and utter fiction, a piece of legal theater to satisfy the church's requirements, and that no girl in your position would have ever dared to refuse. Others, however, point to rare, almost legendary cases of refusal. They scour old court documents and ecclesiastical records for evidence of girls who, Against all odds, said I do not. These cases are exceedingly rare, and usually involve girls of a slightly lower, less politically crucial rank, or those with a sympathetic and powerful clergyman on their side. For a girl like you, a key piece in a dynastic puzzle. The path of refusal is a sheer cliff face. You hear a whispered, cautionary tale from one of the ladies in waiting. A story about a girl from a distant court, 2 generations ago. This girl, the story goes, was in love with a squire and, at the altar, when asked for her consent to marry a duke, she refused. She claimed a pre-contract, a secret vow she had already made to the squire. This was one of the few legitimate grounds for invalidating a planned marriage. The legal chaos that ensued was catastrophic. The duke was insulted, the alliance was shattered, and the girl's family was disgraced. The girl herself, she was sent to a remote, harsh convent, and the squire was never seen again. The story is told with a shiver and a shake of the head. It is not a romance. It is a horror story. It is a warning. So when the priest looks at you and asks if you understand that your consent must be freely given, you nod. You understand perfectly. You understand that you have the freedom to choose the one and only path that is laid out for you. The freedom to walk willingly into your destiny. Any other choice is a fantasy, a dull way to ruin. You will say the words you are told to say. You will give the consent that is required. It is the final, and perhaps the greatest, lesson in obedience that you have had to learn. The castle is now a hive, buzzing with the energy of preparation. The sheer scale of it is overwhelming. Entire flocks of geese are being fattened. Barrels of wine are trundling through the gates. And a small army of seamstresses has been conscripted to work on your wedding gown and delivery for the household nights. All of this activity revolves around you, yet you feel completely detached from it, like a ghost haunting its own feast. You are the subject of every conversation, but you are a participant in none of them. You are more of a symbol than a person. Your only refuge from this grand, impersonal machine is the solar, the large, sunny room where the ladies of the household spend their days with their needlework. But even here, the atmosphere has changed. The usual gossip has been replaced with talk of your tryst woe, of the guests who will attend, of the political implications of your union. The women look at you with a new kind of intensity, a mixture of envy, pity, and naked curiosity. You are their living entertainment, their most fascinating project. It is in this room, amidst the quiet click of needles and the rustle of silk, that you find an unexpected and dangerous comfort. Her name is Alora. She is not one of the high-born ladies in waiting who are your official companions. She is the daughter of a lesser knight, a girl with a small dowry and no grand prospects, kept in the household for her truly exceptional skill with a needle. She is quiet, often overlooked, and possesses a stillness that sets her apart from the chattering ambition of the other women. Your friendship begins not with words, but with a shared glance. One of the senior ladies is complaining loudly about the quality of the silver thread, a petty display of her own importance. Your eyes meet Alora across the room, and in that fleeting second, you see a shared spark of weary amusement. It's a tiny, silent conspiracy, a moment of connection that says, I see it too. After that, the gestures become more frequent when you struggle with a complex stitch, dropping your needle for the 3rd time in frustration. Ilara, under the guise of fetching more thread, will pause behind your chair and whisper a small word of advice. When the mistress is about to inspect your work, you feel a gentle touch on your arm and look down to see Alora has, with a few deft movements, corrected a glaring mistake you had made. She does this without seeking thanks or recognition. She does it quietly, almost invisibly. One afternoon, she presses something small and warm into your hand. It's a tiny honey cake, still fragrant from the ovens, that she likely charmed from a kitchen boy. You look pale, she whispers, and then she is gone before you can thank her. It is perhaps the first time in this castle that someone has offered you something without a calculated motive. It is an act of simple, human kindness, Historians and literary scholars still argue about the nature of female friendships in the medieval world. Were these relationships merely pragmatic alliances, women banding together for support and survival in a patriarchal world, or could they be havens of genuine emotional intimacy and affection? In your world, where every interaction is weighed and measured for its political value, a connection like the one you are forming with Alara feels radical. It is a bond based not on status or utility, but on a quiet, mutual understanding. In stolen moments, when the supervising eyes are turned elsewhere, you speak. You learn that her brother serves in the Mews, and she tells you the names of all the hunting hawks. There you, in turn, find yourself telling her about the rag doll you had as a small child in your father's castle. These are small, unimportant stories, the currency of a normal childhood. But for you, they are a lifeline. Alara is the only person who asks you about your past. The only person who seems to see the child that still exists beneath the heavy brocade of the bride-to-be. She shows you a bit of charming folklore, a piece of knowledge far outside your formal education. While mending a simple linen shift, she shows you how to hide a single, tiny stitch of red thread in the inner seam. For protection, she whispers with a smile, keeps the bad spirits and the bad luck away. It is a small, superstitious, and deeply personal gesture, a secret between the two of you. This friendship is a fragile, secret garden in the middle of a fortress. It is your only escape, but you both know it cannot last. The wedding looms, and when it is over, you will be the lady of this castle, the wife of its future lord. The social chasm between you and Alara will become a vast, unbridgeable canyon. She will have to curtsy to you, to call you my lady, to avert her eyes. This brave, precious period of mere equality is a fleeting gift. But for now, in the quiet afternoons filled with the scent of beeswax and the whisper of silk, you are not a political asset and she is not a pure relation. You are just two girls, sharing a secret and a stolen honey cake, finding a moment of grace before the world pulls you apart forever. You wake before the sun, not because of a noise, but because of a profound and unnerving stillness in the castle. It's as if the entire world is holding its breath. Today is the day, a day that has been the silent, invisible destination of your entire life has finally arrived, and you feel nothing but a strange, hello come, a numbness. It is the day you will be transformed from a ward into a wife. There is no gentle waking. The door to your chamber opens and a procession of women enters, led by your mother-in-law. They move with a quiet, ritualistic purpose. This is not a morning for comfort. It is a morning for construction. You are not to be dressed. You are to be assembled. You are stripped of your simple linen shift, and your body is washed with cold, rose-scented water that makes you shiver. Then, the layers begin. A fine chemise, softer than anything you have ever worn. A silk kirtlet, dyed a deep, vibrant blue. And then, the gown itself. It takes 3 of them to lift it. It is a river of deep crimson brocade, so heavy with silver thread and seed pearls that it seems to have its own gravity. As they lower it over your head, you feel its weight settle on your small shoulders, a physical representation of the title you are about to assume. The laces on the back are pulled brutally tight, cinching your waist and forcing your posture into a rigid, upright position. You are no longer a child who can slouch or run. You are an effigy of a great lady. Your hair is plaited with ribbons and strands of pearls, a complex architecture that takes over an hour to complete. A fine, almost transparent veil is placed over it, held in place by a simple circlet of gold. You are a doll being prepared for display, a priceless object being polished for presentation. When it is all done, your mother-in-law walks a slow circle around you, her eyes missing nothing. She adjusts a fold in the fabric, tucks a stray piece of hair. She nods, not with affection, but with the satisfaction of a general whose troops are perfectly arrayed for battle. You will do, she says. Then, you are led out. The walk to the chapel is the longest of your life, and it doesn't happen inside the church. Not at first. In a fascinating and deeply public tradition, the most legally binding part of the ceremony often took place in face the ecclesia before the face of the church, right at the chapel doors, in the open air. This wasn't just for show. It was a fundamental part of the process. A marriage was a public contract, a transfer of property and status. It needed to have witnesses, dozens of them, from the highest lord to the lowest stable boy, all gathered in the courtyard to see the deal publicly finalized. You step out into the pale morning light, and the entire court is there, a sea of upturned, curious faces. You see Elora in the crowd, her face pale, and she gives you the smallest, almost imperceptible nod. It's the last piece of your old life you will see. Your future father-in-law takes your arm, his grip firm and proprietary, and leads you to the chapel steps where the groom and the priest are waiting. He looks different today, dressed in clothes as fine as your own, his hair combed. He looks less like the sullen boy from the garden and more like what he is. The heir. He looks just as terrified as you feel. Historians still debate the internal experience of a bride at this moment, surrounded by pomp and pageantry, dressed in a fortune. Being the center of a great political event, was it possible that these things overshadowed the personal fear? Did a girl in your position feel a sense of importance, of order, that balanced the dread of the unknown, or was it all just a beautiful, suffocating performance designed to mask the grim reality of the transaction? The priest's voice begins the Latin rites. It is a low, familiar tone, and then he switches to the common tongue for the most important part. He asks your groom if he takes you as his wife. His voice cracks. But he says, "I will it." Then, all eyes turn to you. The priest asks the question. The silence is absolute. You can feel the weight of hundreds of expectations pressing down on you. This is the moment, the performance of a lifetime. You look at the priest, at the crowd, at the strange boy before you, and you say the word that has been chosen for you. Dalu, I will it. Your voice is a thin, really thin, but it is enough. The groom takes your hand. His own is cold and clammy, and slides a ring onto your finger. It fits perfectly now. The priest says the final words of blessing. A cheer goes up from the crowd. It is done. In the space of a single breath, with a single word. You have been remade. You are no longer a child. You are no longer a ward. You are a wife. The world dissolves into a blur of noise and color. You are led from the chapel steps into the great hall, which has been transformed. The lawn. Rough-hewn tables are covered in white linen, and the air, usually smelling of dogs and damp stone, is thick with the scent of roasted meat, hot bread, and hundreds of sweating, perfumed bodies. You sit at the high table, a smooth, silent effigy beside your new husband. An endless river of food is placed before you. Glistening peacocks laid rest in their feathers, towers of jellied eels, and mountains of sweet pastries. You eat none of it. Your stomach is a tight, cold knot. The feast is a performance for everyone but you. It is a display of your father-in-law's wealth and power. The more exotic the food, the more freely the wine flows. The more impressive the union appears to the assembled guests. You watch as lords and ladies laugh, their faces flushed with wine. You listen to the drone of the minstrels in the gallery, their music a meaningless backdrop to your own silent anxiety. Your husband says nothing to you. He drinks his wine, his knuckles white where he grips the silver goblet. Hours pass, the sun sets, and the hall grows hotter, louder, and dimmer, the air thick with smoke from the torches and the tallow candles. The laughter takes on a coarser, more ragged edge, and then, a shift, a change in the energy of the room that you feel in your bones. The meal is ending, but the night is not. The true ceremony is about to begin. Your ladies in waiting, their faces giddy with wine and excitement, descend upon you. They pull you to your feet. On the other side of the hall, the men are doing the same to your husband, tapping him on the back, making jokes that you can't quite hear but can easily imagine. You are separated and herded towards the stairs. This is not a private, tender moment. It is a public procession. You are being escorted to your marriage bed by a crowd. You are swept up in a sea of bodies. A giggling, jostling, slightly drunk mob of women who lead you to the master chamber. The room, which you have never been in before, is dominated by a vast, curtained bed. The priest is there, a solemn figure in the midst of the revelry, to bless the bed itself, sprinkling it with holy water as if to sanctify the ground on which a treaty is about to be sealed. You are undressed, not with the formal ceremony of the morning, but with a clumsy burst of haste. You are put into a fine linen nightgown. You are placed in the bed. The cold sheets are shock against your skin. Then the men arrive, pushing your husband into the room. He too, has been put into his nightclothes. He is made to get into the bed beside you. You lie there, side by side, two rigid figures under the blankets, while the room remains full of people, their faces lit by flickering candlelight. Historians still argue about the precise purpose of this bizarre and humiliating ritual. Was it merely a boisterous, drunken holdover from ancient folk traditions, or did it serve a vital legal purpose? Many scholars insist it was the latter. In an age with no marriage certificates, no photographs, no official registry, the public bedding was the final, undeniable proof. The community had not only witnessed the vows, they had witnessed the couple being placed in the marriage bed, ready for the consummation that would make the union legally unbreakable. It was a defense against any future claims that the marriage had not been fulfilled. To make the strained public theater even more surreal, there was often the ritual of throwing the stocking. As you and your husband sit awkwardly in the bed, the guests would take turns throwing one of his stockings over their shoulders, aiming for your heads. The belief, a bizarre piece of wedding night fun, was that the first person to successfully land the stocking on one of your heads would be the next to marry. It was a game, a fertility rite, and a final, intrusive piece of public participation in your most private moment. Finally, after the last toasts are made and the last jokes are shouted, the crowd begins to recede. Your mother-in-law gives you a final, long, unreadable look. Your father-in-law claps his son on the shoulder. They leave. One by one, the others follow, until the room is empty. The heavy oak door is closed, and the bolt is shut home from the outside. The silence that rushes in is deafening. It is more intimidating than all the noise that came before. The only sound is the frantic beating of your own heart. You are alone, in the dark, with a stranger. The contract is signed. The performance is over. The reality is about to begin. You wake to the pale, grey light of dawn filtering through the high chamber window. For a disoriented moment, you don't know where you are. The room smells of stale wine, snuffed-out candles, and the unfamiliar scent of another person. Then, the memory of the night before washes over you, not as a sharp recollection, but as the dull, heavy ache of a particularly unpleasant dream. The other side of the vast bed is empty. The boy is gone. He must have risen and left before the first light, leaving behind only the indentation of his head on the pillow. You lie perfectly still, a small, lonely island in a sea of linen and heavy blankets. The silence of the room is a stark contrast to the noise of the previous night. Nothing feels real. You feel like you are still you. The same child who was terrified in the chapel, the same girl who shared a honey cake with Alara, but you know, with a cold certainty that settles deep in your bones, that something has fundamentally changed. The first proof comes with a soft knock, followed by the entry of a servant girl you've seen before. She carries a basin of water and fresh cloths. But today, she does not meet your eyes. She curtsies, a deep informal gesture. "My lady," she murmurs to the floor, "will you have water to wash?" "My lady." The title sounds absurd, a costume piece that doesn't fit. Yesterday, she would have called you by your given name, or perhaps not addressed you at all. Today, this simple, servile address has created a new, invisible wall between you. It is the first brick in the edifice of your new identity. But the true confirmation, the brutal ritual of the morning after, is yet to come. The door opens again, this time without a knock. Your mother-in-law enters, followed by your own chief lady-in-waiting from your birth family, a woman who has known you since you were a toddler. Their faces are grim, impassive, their movements all business. They are not here to ask how you are, or to offer a word of comfort. They have come to inspect the evidence. They walk to the side of the bed without a word. Your lady-in-waiting pulls back the heavy blankets and the top sheet. Their eyes go to the fine linen sheet beneath, searching for the small, telltale stains of blood that would serve as the final, irrefutable proof of your virginity, and therefore, of the marriage's legitimate consummation. This was the grim, physical postscript to the public bedding. The honor of two great houses rested on this small, intimate, and deeply humiliating piece of evidence. The proof of the sheets was a tradition so deeply ingrained that in some parts of the world, the sheets would later be hung from a balcony for the public to see. A stark and graphic announcement of a successfully completed merger. Historians still debate what this ritual was truly about. Was it a genuine, if crude, obsession with a bride's purity? Or was it something colder, a final, physical verification in a property transaction? Some scholars argued that the bride's virginity was the ultimate seal on the deal, the guarantee that any heir produced would be of the husband's bloodline and no other. Her body was the last item on the inventory to be checked and signed off on. You feel a hot wave of shame wash over you, so powerful it makes you dizzy. You are an object of scrutiny, a piece of livestock whose breeding potential has just been successfully verified. Your mother-in-law sees what she came to see. She gives a single, curt nod. The inspection is complete. The transaction is finalized. She turns and leaves without a word. Later, after you have been washed and dressed, not in the crimson of yesterday, but in the sober, dark gown of a married lady, your husband returns. He does not come alone. His father and mother are with him. He walks toward you, his face a stiff, formal mask, and presents you with a small, heavy velvet pouch. This is the Morgan gave, the morning gift. It is not a gift of love. It is a payment, a legally prescribed gift from the groom to the bride on the morning after the consummation. It is his acknowledgement of her purity and his provision for her future. This money, or the lands it represents, would legally be yours to control. A small pocket of independence in a life of dependence, your security should you become a widow. He places the pouch in your hands. His fingers are cold. My father bids me give you the manor at Westbrook, he says, reciting a line he has clearly been told to memorize. You accept it. The world outside the window looks exactly the same as it did yesterday. The same sky, the same stone walls, the same distant sound of a blacksmith's hammer, but you are no longer a child looking out at it. You are the lady of the manor at Westbrook. You are a wife, and your life, from this moment forward, will never be your own again. The morning gift is the final punctuation mark on the long, elaborate sentence of your wedding. Now, the feasting is over, the guests have departed, and the castle settles back into its familiar, grinding routine. But your role within that routine has been irrevocably upgraded. You no longer sit below the salt. You sit at the high table, beside your husband, in a chair that is only slightly less grand than his mother's. You are no longer an apprentice with the keys. You now carry your own smaller, symbolic chatelaine at your waist. But these are just changes in scenery. Your true, singular purpose has now begun in earnest. The pressure is immense, and it is entirely unspoken. No one ever says the word heir, but it is the silent, humming engine that doctors everything. It is in the way your mother-in-law's eyes flicker to your belly every time you see her. It is in the carefully selected foods that are still served to you, the ones believed to promote a fruitful womb. It is in the prayers the priest now leads, which have subtly shifted from petitions for your general well-being to specific appeals to Saint Anne, the patron saint of childless women. Your entire existence is now a state of waiting, a biological vigil on a far more profound level than before. Every month that passes without a sign of pregnancy is a quiet, collective failure. The disappointment is a palpable thing, a subtle tightening of the atmosphere in the castle. The smiles of the ladies in waiting become a little more strained, a little more pitying. You are a field that has been plowed and seeded, and now the entire village is standing at the fence, waiting for the first green shoots to appear. And if they don't, the fault will not be with the seed or with the farmer. The fault will be with the field. The medieval world had a tragically one-sided understanding of fertility. It was seen almost exclusively as a female responsibility, a female virtue or failing. If a union was barren, it was overwhelmingly presumed to be the wife's fault. She was seen as either physically inadequate or, worse, as having some hidden sin that had caused God to close her womb. The man's role in the matter was rarely, if ever, questioned. This placed an almost unbearable psychological burden on a young wife. You are not just failing the family, you are failing God. Historians still puzzle over the complex and often bizarre remedies that were prescribed for infertility. The advice you would have received would have been a strange cocktail of folk magic, religious ritual, and rudimentary medical theory. You might be told to drink a potion made from powdered deer antler and wine. You might be instructed to wear a special girdle containing a piece of parchment with a prayer written on it. You would certainly be encouraged to make a pilgrimage to the shrine of a saint known for fertility miracles, walking miles to leave a wax effigy of a baby at their altar. And what of your relationship with your husband? The marriage bed, which was once the site of a terrifying, unknown ordeal, has now become the place of a tedious, repetitive duty. The intimacy is purely functional, a grimly determined act aimed at producing a result. There is no tenderness, no affection. He is a stranger performing a task. You are a vessel receiving a deposit. The silence between you is vast and profound. You lie beside each other in the dark, two separate people bound by a single, desperate obligation. The fear of failure is a constant, cold companion. You have seen what happens to barren queens in the stories the minstrels sing. They are set aside, repudiated, sent to convents in disgrace while their husbands take new, more fertile wives, while the church officially forbade divorce. Powerful men often found ways around it, seeking annulment on flimsy, trumped-up grounds, such as a previously unknown blood relation between the couple. A wife who could not produce an heir, especially a male heir, was a contract that had failed to deliver. She had not fulfilled her primary function. Her value plummeted. So you pray. You drink the bitter potions. You endure the silent, monthly disappointment. You are no longer a person. You are a potential, and until you fulfill that potential, you are living in a state of suspended grace. Your position at the high table, your title, your very security, all hanging by the single, fragile thread of your ability to conceive. And then, 1 month, the familiar disappointment does not arrive. It is replaced by a new, unsettling sensation. A sickness in the mornings that leaves you pale and weak. A profound weariness that settles deep in your bones. At first, you hide it, fearing it is a sign of some illness, another personal failing. But your lady in waiting, a woman with more experience in these matters, sees the signs. She watches you for a week, her expression a mixture of knowing and calculation, and then she goes to your mother-in-law. The reaction is not one of joyous celebration. There are no happy tears or warm embraces. Instead, there is a quiet, intense satisfaction, a sense of a long and difficult project finally showing signs of success. Your mother-in-law looks at you with a new kind of gaze. It is no longer the appraising look of a manager assessing an asset. It is the fiercely protective, deeply proprietary look of a dragon guarding its hoard. You are no longer just a vessel of potential. You are a fragile vessel carrying precious cargo. Your value has increased tenfold, and so has the level of scrutiny you are under. Your life changes overnight. You are excused from your mending duties. Your walks in the garden are now short and supervised. lest you trip on a loose stone. You are a child, but you are now forbidden from any childish activity. You must not run, or laugh too loudly, or become overly excited. Your body is no longer your own in a social and legal sense. No, it is not your own in a physical one either. It has been commandeered for a purpose far greater than your own existence. You feel the changes happening inside you. A slow, internal ripening that is both miraculous and terrifying. Your body, still small and not yet fully formed itself, struggles under the strain. There are aches in your back and hips that you have never known. Your clothes, once again, grow tight, but in a new and alarming way. This is the immense physical danger of a medieval pregnancy for a girl whose own bones are still settling into their final shape. You are a child carrying a child, and the biological conflict is a quiet, daily battle. The fear is constant. You have seen what can happen. You remember a cousin of your husband's, a young wife who died in childbirth 2 years ago. Her name is now only spoken in hushed, sad whispers. The castle chapel is full of memorial plaques to women who died in childbed. It is the great, unspoken terror that hangs over every woman's life. Childbirth is not a medical procedure. It is a battle, and the mortality rate for both mother and child is terrifyingly high. The greatest killer is not the ordeal of labor itself, but the childbed fever that so often follows, an infection for which there is no name and no cure. Historians still wrestle with the emotional state of a young, pregnant girl in this era. Did you feel a sense of triumphant fulfillment? A deep satisfaction at finally succeeding in your one great duty? Or were you simply a terrified child, trapped in a biological process you didn't understand and which you knew could kill you? The truth is likely an exhausting and confusing mix of both. You feel the pride of the household resting on you, but you also feel the cold hand of fear on your shoulder. Adding to this psychological burden is a strange and terrifying new responsibility. You must now police your own thoughts. A pervasive belief of the time was the concept of maternal impression. It was thought that a powerful emotional experience, or even a strong thought, in a pregnant woman could physically mark her unborn child. If you were frightened by a dog, your child might be born with a dog-shaped birthmark. If you looked upon a cripple with too much pity, your child might be born with a twisted limb. If you had lustful or unholy thoughts, your child might be born a monster. So you must live in a state of enforced serenity, guarding your every emotion, lest your own inner turmoil physically scar your baby. As the months pass, your world shrinks. In the final weeks, you enter a period of confinement known as lying in. You are secluded in your chambers, which have been prepared like a sacred space. The tapestries are changed. The windows are covered to keep out drafts and evil humors. And only women are allowed to enter. Your husband, your father-in-law, the priest, they are all barred. You are now in the exclusive, mysterious world of women, a world of midwives and whispered advice, preparing for the final ordeal. The castle holds its breath. The air is coming. But first, you must survive. The quiet of your confinement is finally broken. It ends not with a dramatic cry, but with a deep, internal clench, a full-body question mark of a pain that announces the true beginning of your ordeal. The women in the room, who have been murmuring quietly by the fire, now move with a hushed, focused energy. The midwife, a woman with a face like a weathered map and hands that are surprisingly gentle, becomes the undisputed commander of this small, stuffy kingdom. Your chamber, once a place of rest, transforms into a sacred battleground. Windows are checked again, ensuring no harmful night air or malevolent spirit can find a way in. The fire is built up, making the room almost unbearably hot. Holy water is sprinkled in the corners, and a small, silver reliquary is taken from a locked box and placed on a table near your bed. It supposedly contains a single thread from the Virgin Mary's own gown, a powerful charm to protect you. You are entering a space where medicine, magic, and religion are all tangled together into a single, desperate hope for survival. Time ceases to have meaning. The world narrows to the four posts of your bed and the rhythm of your own body. The pain comes in waves, each one building, cresting, and then receding, leaving you gasping and exhausted in the brief, merciful calm. The women murmur prayers. They chant. They wipe your face with cool, damp cloths. You are no longer a person of rank or title. You are a laboring animal, and they are your keepers. The midwife's voice is a low, steady drone in your ear. She offers you sips of a bitter herbal tea, something she says will give you strength. Historians still debate how much of what a midwife like this knows is genuine, inherited medical wisdom, passed down through generations of women, and how much is pure, powerful superstition. Is the tea a muscle relaxant, or just a bitter tea? Is the pressure she applies to your back a recognized medical technique, or just a comforting touch? The line is impossibly blurry. For you, it doesn't matter. You are adrift on a sea of pain, and her voice is the only anchor you have. In a moment of particular intensity, someone lays a piece of parchment on your belly. It's a prayer written backwards and in a spiral, a piece of holy magic meant to confuse the demons of pain and draw the baby out. Another woman is tasked with unlocking every single lock in the chamber, on chests, on doors, on small caskets based on the belief in sympathetic magic. If all is open and unbound, then your body, too, will open and release the child. It is a strange, desperate, beautiful logic. Hours grind on, the sun sets, and the room is lit only by the flickering fire and a few blessed candles. You drift in and out of a haze of exhaustion. You are no longer an active participant. You are a vessel for a powerful, primal event that is using your body for its own ends. And then, a change. The midwife's voice becomes sharper, more urgent. The women draw closer. The final stage has begun. In a great, final, world-ending surge, there is a release. A sudden, shocking quiet. The pain recedes like a great wave pulling back from the shore, leaving an eerie, echoing silence in the room. And into that silence, a new sound slices through the air, a thin, wailing cry. It is the sound of a new life. It is the sound of a victory. A wave of relief so profound it feels like a physical blow washes over you. You are limp, boneless, utterly spent. But your ordeal is not the focus of the room anymore. All attention is on the small, squirming bundle that the midwife now holds. Another woman is already there with a basin of warm water and clean linen. There is a moment of held breath. The final, crucial question. The midwife performs her swift, expert inspection. And then she looks up, not at you, but towards the door, as if announcing the news to the men waiting anxiously on the other side. "Hey son," she says, her voice ringing with triumph. "God has blessed this house with a son." The tension in the room breaks. There are soft cries of joy, prayers of thanks. The baby, your son, is quickly washed and swaddled so tightly he looks like a tiny cocoon. He is now the most important person in the castle. He is the heir. Your mother-in-law enters, her face a mask of iron-willed composure. But her eyes are shining. She doesn't come to your side. She goes directly to the baby, inspecting him as if he were a newly acquired crown jewel. She takes him, her touch surprisingly gentle, and carries him to the door to present him to his father and grandfather. You watch all this from the bed, feeling strangely distant. You have done it. You have performed the single most important act of your life. You have produced a male heir. Your position is secure. You have fulfilled the contract. You are no longer the center of attention. You are the ship that has arrived safely in port. The cargo is what matters now. In the weeks that follow the birth, you are treated like a fragile, precious object that has performed a great and dangerous miracle. You remain in the quiet, female-dominated world of your chambers, recovering your strength, while the castle outside celebrates. A special mass of thanksgiving is held. Gifts arrive from neighboring lords. The child, Your son is baptized in a grand ceremony, given a name that echoes with the history of his father's line, and wrapped in a christening gown so laden with silver thread it probably weighs more than he does. But this period of coddled recovery is a brief, temporary state. As your physical strength returns, a new and startling reality begins to dawn. Your mother-in-law, the iron-willed matriarch who has governed every aspect of this castle and your life for years, begins to recede. She does not vanish, but her presence at your side becomes less about instruction and more about observation. She is watching you, not for signs of fertility, but for signs of competence. The great transition of power is beginning, and it is happening far sooner than you ever expected. You are now the mother of the heir. This is not a sentimental title, it is a political one. It elevates your status in the household hierarchy to a level just below the reigning lord and lady. You are no longer the junior wife in training. You are the future, and with that title comes a slow, but inexorable, transfer of responsibility. It starts with small things. Landlordy, the steward, a grey-haired man who has always reported directly to your mother-in-law, comes to you with a question about a shipment of wine. You look confused towards your mother-in-law, who is also in the room. She simply raises an eyebrow and says, "Well, you have the keys. What is your decision?" The steward, and the entire castle, is watching to see what you will do. You are a child, perhaps 14 or 15, being asked to make a decision that affects the running of a massive, complex household. Your hands tremble as you give your first real order. You are the child mistress, the lady of the castle in all but name, presiding over a staff of people who are uniformly 2, 3, 4 times your age. You walk through the kitchens, and the head cook, a fearsome woman with arms as thick as logs, respectfully asks for your approval on the week's menus. You inspect the armory, and the master at arms, a man with scars on his face older than you are, explains his need for new leather to repair the saddles. They are not asking a child for her opinion. They are reporting to their liege lady, the mother of the future lord. This was a deeply strange and often uncomfortable reality of the medieval noble household. The authority was vested in the title, not in the age or experience of the person holding it. Your personal youth was irrelevant in the face of your dynastic importance. Historians still debate how this power dynamic actually worked in practice. Was the young mistress truly in charge, or was she merely a figurehead, a puppet controlled by her still powerful mother-in-law or a council of trusted male advisors? The answer is almost certainly a mixture of both. Your mother-in-law is still the true power behind the throne, the quiet, formidable presence whose approval you still desperately seek. But she is deliberately forcing you to take the lead, to learn by doing, to grow into the role that destiny has assigned you. It is a terrifying, sink-or-swim education in leadership. You make mistakes. You order too much of one spice and not enough of another. You are too lenient with a lazy servant and too harsh with an honest one. And every mistake is a lesson, often delivered in a quiet, cutting critique from your mother-in-law later that evening. But you learn. You learn to project an aura of authority you do not feel. You learn to listen to the advice of your more experienced servant without appearing weak or indecisive. You learn the intricate dance of giving orders in a way that sounds less like a child's demand and more like a lady's command. The strangest part is your relationship with your own child. He is not yours. He is the dynasty's. He has a wet nurse, a team of nursery maids, and is the subject of more careful attention than a visiting king. You see him at designated times of the day, to be presented to you, clean and quiet. You are his mother, but you are not raising him. Your job was to produce him. No, your job is to run the castle that he will one day inherit. The years begin to stack up, one on top of the other, like stones in a wall. Your son grows from a swaddled infant into a toddling boy, a small, loud, and adored tyrant of the nursery. You grow, too. The last vestiges of childhood roundness have vanished from your face, replaced by a kind of weary competence. You are the lady of the castle now in practice as well as in name. Your mother-in-law has retreated into a semi-retirement of prayer and quiet needlework. Her authority a shadow you still feel, but a shadow that no longer directs your every move. Your husband is a frequent absence. His life is a series of tournaments, royal summons to court, and the occasional border skirmish that flares up like a summer heat rash and then subsides. He comes and goes. When he is home, you share a table and a bed, but the silence between you remains a vast, unpaid territory. You have a child together, a household, a life, but you do not have a connection. You are two pillars holding up the same roof, functional and parallel, but never touching. Then, one autumn afternoon, a rider gallops into the courtyard, his horse lathered and stumbling with exhaustion. He does not carry a banner of victory. He brings a letter with a black seal. There has been a hunting accident. De Boer, cornered and furious, had turned on the hunting party. Your husband, ever the brave one, had faced it head-on. The boar is dead, but so is he. The news falls into the great hall like a stone dropped down a deep, dark well. You wait for the splash, the feeling, the grief, but it doesn't come. What you feel instead is a profound, terrifying, and utterly inappropriate silence, a blankness. The castle erupts into the carefully choreographed performance of mourning. Ladies begin to weep. Servants rush to hang black cloth over the tapestries. The chapel bells begin to toll their slow, mournful rhythm. And you are the center of it all, the chief mourner, the grieving widow. You are expected to faint, to cry, to tear at your hair. You do none of these things. You simply stand there, feeling a strange, cold lightness, as if a great weight you didn't even realize you were carrying has just been lifted. This, you realize with a jolt of shame, is freedom, or at least, the sudden, shocking possibility of it. You will be a dowager, the mother of the new young lord. Your son is the heir, and you are his guardian. The power you have been carefully accumulating will now be yours completely. You will answer to no one. The thought is so dizzying, so liberating, it almost makes you smile. You quickly compose your face into a mask of tragic sorrow. Historians have long debated the true power held by high-born medieval widows. While they liberated women, suddenly in control of their own fortunes and their sons' vast estates, becoming formidable political players in their own right, or were they vulnerable, isolated figures, their newfound power making them prime targets, to be quickly and forcibly remarried to a man who could protect their son's inheritance and not coincidentally control it. The historical record is full of examples of both. For every powerful dowager who ruled her lands with an iron fist for decades, there is another who was remarried within months of her husband's funeral. You soon discover which category you will fall into, before your husband's body has even been brought back to the castle for its formal lying in state. Your father-in-law summons you to his solar. His face is a mask of grief, but his eyes are sharp, calculating. He is a man who sees a chessboard even at a funeral. He speaks of the precarious position of your son, a child lord. He exclaims, "He's like a lamb surrounded by wolves. His lands are vulnerable. His vassals might become rebellious. He needs a strong hand to guide him, to protect his inheritance until he comes of age. He needs a new father. He needs." You realize with a sinking, sickening dread, a stepfather. The speed with which these matters were handled can be shocking to the modern mind. A politically important widow was simply too valuable a commodity to be left on the shelf for long. There was even a bizarre, and much disputed, piece of canon law related to what was sometimes called a widow's quarantine. A widow was expected to wait a certain period, sometimes up to a year and a day, before remarrying. This was not out of respect for her grief. It was a brutally practical measure to resolve any paternity questions. If she was already pregnant at the time of her husband's death, the mourning period would ensure there was no doubt that the child was a legitimate heir of the deceased, not the new husband. Your father-in-law already has a candidate in mind, a neighboring baron, a man known for his military prowess and his loyalty to the family. A man in his late 40s, a widower himself. It is, he explains, a perfect match. It will secure the borders. It will provide a strong male figure for your son. It will ensure stability. He does not ask for your opinion. He is informing you of his strategic decision. And in that moment, the giddy, fleeting illusion of freedom evaporates like mist in the sun. You see the truth. Your husband's death has not freed you. It has simply made you available. Your proven fertility, your status as mother of the heir, and the dower lands you control have not made you powerful. They have made you a prize. You are back on the market, more valuable than ever before. The game is not over. It has simply been reset, and you are once again the key piece, about to be moved by another player's hand. The news of your impending second marriage spreads through the castle, not as a happy announcement, but as a quiet, accepted fact of life. Your brief, phantom widowhood is over before it has even properly begun. You are now being prepared for a new husband, a new master, a man you know only by his fearsome reputation and the grim set of his jaw you've observed at past feasts. The machinery of matrimony, so familiar to you, begins to crank and groan its way back into motion. You feel a profound, suffocating sense of hopelessness. It seems there is no escape. Your life is a series of rooms, and the door from one only ever leads to another. Each one locked from the outside by a different man. The path laid out for you is a single, straight line from which you are not allowed to deviate. Your duty is to marry, to produce heirs, to manage a household, and to do it all over again until you die. It is during this bleak period that a surprising visitor arrives at the castle. A small delegation of nuns, their carriage having broken the wheel on the main road, request shelter for the night. They are led by an abbess, a woman of your mother-in-law's age, but where your mother-in-law's face is etched with the cares of worldly power. The abbess's face is serene, her eyes clear and calm. That evening, you are seated beside her at the high table, out of courtesy, and perhaps a flicker of genuine curiosity. You ask her about her life, about the convent she governs. As she speaks, she paints a picture of a world you have never imagined. It is a world without men. A world where women are not wives or mothers, but scholars, artists, and administrators. She speaks of the scriptorium, where her nuns copy and illuminate beautiful manuscripts, preserving knowledge. She speaks of their infirmary, where they practice the art of healing, their knowledge of herbs far surpassing your own. She speaks of the daily rhythm of prayer and work, a life of peaceful, ordered devotion. Most importantly, she speaks of a world where a woman's worth is not determined by her or her dowry, but by her piety and her intellect. The convent, she explains, is a self-contained society, governed by its own rules, protected by the church. An abbess like herself wields immense power. She controls vast lands, manages complex finances, and answers to no one but the bishop and God. It is a life of service, yes, but it is also a life of profound autonomy. Historians have a complex and often contradictory view of the medieval convent. Was it a dumping ground for surplus daughters? A place to quietly dispose of girls who were to appear to have a dowry, too plain to make a good match, or too rebellious to be controlled? Or was it a genuine haven? One of the very few places in medieval society where a woman could escape the relentless cycle of marriage and childbirth and pursue a life of the mind and the spirit? The answer, of course, is that it was both. For many women, the convent was not a choice. They were placed there as children by families who could not afford to marry them off. But for others, particularly for intelligent, ambitious, or deeply devout women, the religious life was a conscious and deliberate choice. It was an escape route. It was the only alternative to a life of forced matrimony. A particularly fascinating and quirky detail is that some convents became known for producing specific goods, almost like a holy corporation. One might be famous for its exquisite embroidery, another for its potent herbal remedies, and some even for brewing a particularly fine ale. They were not just places of prayer. They were centers of skilled female labor. As you listen to the abbess, a strange, new feeling begins to stir within you. It is a flicker of an idea so radical, so audacious, that it almost takes your breath away. What if you refused? Not with the passionate rebellion of a child, but with the unshakable certainty of a woman claiming a divine calling. What if you declared that in your grief you had found God, and that you wished to renounce the world and dedicate your life, and your considerable widow's fortune, to the church? It would be a scandal, of course. Your father-in-law would be furious. The baron you are promised to would be insulted. But it would be a difficult move to block. To deny a pious widow's request to enter a convent would be seen as impious itself. It was a loophole, a sacred, sanctioned escape hatch. The idea is a small, warm coal glowing in the cold darkness of your despair. You could be the mistress of your own life. You would be a bride, yes, but a bride of Christ. A marriage in which you would not be a subordinate, but an equal partner in spirit. You would have to sacrifice everything: your son, your position, the world you know. You would be trading a gilded cage for a stone one. But within that stone cage, you might, for the first time in your life, be truly free. The abbess and her nuns leave the next morning. You watch their carriage disappear down the road, and the idea they have planted in your mind remains. A tiny, resilient seed of possibility. For the first time, you understand that there is not just one path, there are two, and the choice, however dangerous, however costly, might actually be yours to make. The seed of an idea planted by the visiting abbess is a dangerous and beautiful thing. It grows in the secret, silent corners of your mind as you go about your duties. You look at your son, a boisterous, happy child who is a stranger to you, and you wonder if you could truly leave him. You look at the cold, calculating face of your father-in-law, and you feel a surge of defiant energy. The choice between the world and the cloister becomes a silent, internal war you fight every single day. One evening, your second husband-to-be, the grim-faced baron, comes to dine. He is seated beside you at the high table. He is precisely as you remembered him, a man built of stone and silence. He speaks little, eats much, and smells faintly of horses and old leather. He is not a cruel man, you surmise, but a man for whom softness is a foreign language. You look at him and you see your future, more years of silent meals, of functional, loveless nights, of bearing children for a man who sees you as part of an estate, a valuable piece of breeding stock. But then, something unexpected happens, as a servant clears the plates. A small, stray dog, one of the many that live in the castle, slips into the great hall. It runs under the table and, in a moment of pure, canine optimism, it puts its paws on the baron's lap, its tail thumping a hopeful rhythm against his leg. You brace yourself for a roar of anger, for the dog to be kicked away. Instead, the baron stops, looks down, and his harsh, weathered face breaks into a slow, genuine smile. He reaches down and, with a surprising gentleness, scratches the dog behind its ears. He tears off a piece of bread from his trencher and gives it to the delighted animal. It is a small, insignificant moment, a crack in the stone facade. But in that crack, you see something you did not expect. A flicker of warmth, a hint of a hidden kindness. Later that week, you are walking in the garden, lost in your turmoil, when he finds you. He does not speak of the marriage contract, or of your son's inheritance. He points to a bed of herbs and asks you what they are. You tell him, explaining their uses, your voice flat and dull with your usual recitation. He listens, and then he tells you about a wound he once received on a campaign, and how a wise woman in a small village had used one of those same herbs to save his arm from festering. He speaks of it with a kind of simple, unadorned respect. This is the beginning of a new, and deeply confusing, chapter. You begin to talk, Not about feelings, never about feelings, but about things. About falconry, a subject he knows much about the challenges of the harvest, about the strange politics of the royal court. You discover that beneath the grim exterior is a mind that is practical, observant, and possessed of a dry, unexpected wit. The central question that historians, and indeed all of us, have about these arranged medieval marriages is a simple one. Could love ever grow in such stony soil? Or, if not love, then what about affection, respect, a quiet, comfortable companionship? The romantic in us wants to believe it could. The cynic in us insists it was impossible. The historical truth, as always, is messy and deeply personal. A spectrum of experiences that are lost to us, hidden behind the cold, legal language of the marriage contracts. Scholars still argue fiercely about it, pointing to different letters, poems, and wills as evidence for both sides of the debate. Some wills leave everything to the beloved wife, while others are cold, contractual documents. You find yourself in the middle of this historical debate. The feelings you begin to have for this man are not the stuff of minstrel song. There is no thunderclap, no pining, no poetic sighs. It is something quieter, more practical, and in its own way, more profound. It is the slow, dawning realization that the man you are being forced to marry might not be a monster or a jailer, but simply a person with a flicker of kindness for a strayed organed memory of a painful wound. This does not make your situation any less of a transaction. You are still a pawn in a game of dynastic politics, but it complicates the clean, simple narrative of victimhood you had constructed for yourself. It is harder to hate a man who tells a funny, self-deprecating story about falling off his horse. It is harder to see your future as a bleak prison when the warden occasionally reveals a human face. The idea of the convent does not vanish, but it changes. It is no longer a desperate escape from a monstrous fate. It is now a genuine choice between two very different, and both very difficult, paths. One is a life of spiritual autonomy, of quiet and of study. The other is a life of worldly duty, of marriage and children, but perhaps, just perhaps, with a companion who is not a complete stranger, a partner with whom you might be able to forge a fragile, unexpected peace. You are no longer choosing between freedom and bondage. You are choosing between two different kinds of life, and for the first time, it feels less like a choice you are being forced to make, and more like one you have the strength to own. You choose the world. You do not choose it with a joyful heart, but with a quiet, sober resolve. You step once more before the face of the church, a widow remade into a bride, and you say the word follow for a second time. It tastes different in your mouth this time, less like a surrender, and more like a decision. The man you marry is still a stranger in many ways, but the flicker of kindness you once saw in him proves to be a small but steady flame. Your life together is not a romance, but it is a partnership, a functional, respectful, and occasionally even warm alliance. Years pass. The castle walls remain the same, but the life within them is yours. Your father-in-law passes away, a quiet fading of the old guard. Your son, your firstborn, grows into a young man, his father's shadow at his heels, learning the ways of a lord. And you have more children, a second son, and then a daughter. The birth of your daughter is a different experience. With your first son, you were a terrified child performing a dynastic duty. Now, you are a woman in your prime, the undisputed lady of your domain. There is still fear. Of course, the shadow of childbed fever never truly leaves a woman's mind, but it is a knowledgeable fear, a manageable one. When your daughter is placed in your arms, a tiny, perfect creature with a fuzz of dark hair, you feel a different kind of connection. With your son, the heir, your primary feeling was a sense of relief, of a task completed. With your daughter, you feel a sharp, fierce, and deeply complicated protectiveness. Because you look at her, and you see yourself. You see the path. You watch her grow. You see her playing with her own rag dolls, staging her own miniature feasts, blissfully unaware of the great, grinding machinery of the world she has been born into. And you feel a cold dread coiling in your stomach, because you know that soon, the calculations will begin again. You, who were once the outset, are now the administrator of a new one. It starts, as it always does, with a conversation in the solar. Your husband, the Baron, a man you have come to respect and even feel a quiet affection for, lays out the strategic reality. A neighboring lord has a promising second son. An alliance with his family would consolidate your lands, protecting your own son's inheritance from a rival claimant on the northern border. It is, he explains in his blunt, practical way, a perfect match. The boy is of a good house, healthy, and the political advantages are undeniable. All that is required is the promise of your daughter. She is 7 years old. The words hit you with the force of a physical blow. You feel the ghost of a scratchy velvet dress on your skin, the memory of cold, appraising eyes looking down at you. You look across the hall at your daughter, chasing a butterfly in a patch of sunlight, her laughter echoing in the vast, cold space, and you see her not as she is, but as a signature on a treaty, a puzzle piece to be placed on a map. This is the great, heartbreaking, and inescapable tragedy of your world. You have survived the system. You have learned its rules, navigated its dangers, and carved out a life of relative peace and security for yourself. But to maintain that security, to protect the sons you have born, you must now become an agent of that same system. You must perpetuate the cycle. You must take your own beloved child, your daughter, and place her on the altar of dynastic ambition. Historians often ponder the internal conflicts of these powerful medieval mothers. Did they become inured to the process, seeing it as a natural and necessary part of their world, or did they feel a profound, if silent, anguish at sacrificing their daughters to the same machine that had consumed their own childhoods? Did they, like you, look at their own child and feel a desperate, hopeless urge to snatch them up and run away to a place where girls were just girls, and not bargaining chips? You try to argue. You tell your husband she is too young. You say there is time. He listens. Not unkindly, but his logic is inescapable. These deals take years to finalize. To wait is to risk losing the opportunity. A rival might make a better offer. The political landscape might shift. The time to act, he insists, is now. It is not about cruelty. It is about prudence. It is about protecting the family, protecting her brothers. You look at your daughter again. She has got the butterfly, holding it gently in her cupped hands, her face a mask of pure, innocent wonder. And you know what you have to do. You must teach her the things your mother-in-law taught you. You must teach her to be obedient, to be useful, to be pleasing. You must prepare her for the day the invoice will arrive. You must take her beautiful, vibrant childhood and begin the slow, methodical process of packing it away into a dowry chest. Just as yours was packed away for you, you have survived the game, but your reward is to become one of its key players, sacrificing your own daughter as the opening pawn in a new match. The cycle is unbroken. The seasons blur. Years pass not as distinct events, but as a slow, steady weathering of the stone around you and the landscape of your own face. You watch your daughter's betrothal, her wedding, the birth of her own son. You see the same fear in her eyes that you once felt in your own, and you offer her what little comfort you can, the practical advice of a survivor, not the warm reassurances of a mother who can promise that everything will be all right. You had become your mother-in-law, a matriarch, respected, slightly feared. Your kindness hidden beneath a necessary armor of pragmatism. Your hair is now more silver than brown. Your hands, once pricked by needles in the solar, are now twisted with the arthritis of old age. You walk with a cane through the same halls you once ran through as a terrified child. The castle is a living library of your own history. You see ghosts in every room. The small girl in the velvet dress, The young bride in crimson, the frightened mother in the birthing chamber. They are all you, and yet they are all strangers, figures from a story you can barely remember living. Your life has been a success. By the brutal metrics of your time, you were a triumph. You survived childbirth multiple times. You secured your family's line. You managed a great estate with competence and skill. You forged a peaceful, if not passionate, partnership with your second husband, who now lies beside your first in the cold stone crypt beneath the chapel. You have done everything that was ever asked of you, and more. And yet, as you sit by the window in the solar, watching your grandchildren play the same games you once played in the garden below, you feel a profound sense of what? Not regret. Regret is a luxury for those who had choices. It is a sense of erasua, your personal story, with all its silent fears, its small, secret triumphs, its moments of quiet desperation, feels like it is fading even before you are gone. Historians of the future, you realize, will not know your name. They might not even know you existed. If they do find you, it will be as a footnote in the story of a great man. You will be a name on a treaty, a clause in a marriage contract, a single line in a genealogical chart connecting one powerful house to another. He married the daughter of Lord so-and-so. It will say, thereby acquiring the lands of Westbrook and securing his northern border. Your entire, complex, often painful life will be reduced to a single, strategic function. They will not know about the friendship with Elora, the secret honey cake, the terror of the public bedding, or the flicker of kindness you saw in a grim-faced baron's eyes. All the things that made you a person will vanish. All that will remain is your purpose. You are the bridge, the vessel, the seal on the contract. Your legacy is not your own story. It is the continuation of his. You close your eyes, the sunlight warm on your wrinkled skin. The laughter of the children fades into a soft, distant murmur. You have run the long, grueling race that was set for you. The finish line is in sight. You are tired, and as you drift into the gentle darkness of an afternoon nap, you become what you were always destined to be, a name on a treaty, a piece of the past, a footnote in a history that was never truly your own. And now the story is told in the world of stone castles and whispered contracts can begin to melt away like a dream upon waking. The heavy brocade of the gown, the cold weight of the keys, the flickering torchlight on the wall, you can let it all dissolve into a soft and gentle darkness. You can feel a sense of peace, a sense of release, as if a great weight has been lifted from your own shoulders. The duties and fears of that distant life are not yours to carry. You are here, now, in your own quiet space, safe and warm and completely at rest. The gentle rhythm of your own breathing is the only sound that matters, a soft, steady wave carrying you further and further away from the shore of wakefulness into the deep, common, peaceful ocean of sleep. Every breath is a soft step deeper into comfort, deeper into stillness. There are no more stories to analyze, no more lessons to learn, only this profound and simple, quiet, this comfortable, and heavy peace that settles over you like the softest of blankets. You are drifting now, floating in a place of perfect tranquility where dreams are kind and rest is deep. Our journey together tonight ends here, in this quiet place. Should you need another tale to accompany you further into rest, my library of stories is always open for you. May your dreams be kind. Good night.